Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your co-host, Patience Jones. With me, as always, is
Brian Jones.
Other co-host. Thank you for joining us. So today we're talking about project fatigue.
And it's not the kind of fatigue that you get from working on a project.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
No, this is the fatigue that comes with communicating about one or more projects.
So it frequently shows up on social media where a firm will only talk about its projects, and it will say something to the effect, or their social strategy is something to the effect of, hey, check out our projects. And it's a bit of a challenge, and when you are an outsider who doesn't know what was involved in making the project, you frequently can confuse the projects as being the same thing or not understanding what they are.
And I think it also, when all you're talking about ever is your projects, which are very important and the lifeblood of your firm, but for things like recruitment, it becomes very difficult for somebody to understand why they would want to work at your firm over somebody else's, other than you did this project.
And there's like a subset before we go on to the second part of the different types of projects where you put in a gallery bomb of 400 images of the project that you want to have all at once. And there's no tags or titles to anything. It's just a bunch of images. And I think you can guess that not that many people are going to make it to image number 397. So
no, nobody but you.
Yep.
Yeah. Or your competitor.
So what's the other kind of project fatigue?
So the other kind is when a firm kind of, I don't want to say rests, but when a firm relies on a project or maybe two projects as the projects that have to carry all the weight for the firm. So maybe your firm has done 50 projects in the last 5 years. Everything that is public facing about your firm uses an image from the same project. So it's the featured project on your website. It's the featured project on all of your social profiles. It's the project that you put on the cover of any print materials. You've got it, framed in your office. It's everywhere. There's nothing wrong with being proud of that project. But when that is the sole project that you're still promoting and talking about 2 years later, 3 years later, 15 years later, sometimes it can look like you haven't done anything that you're as proud of since that time. People will know that you've been doing work since that project, but they may think, well, that was the last good project that this firm thinks they did. And why is that? And if I hire them, am I going to get the firm that created that project? Or am I going to get the firm that creates apparently what is subpar work? It's important to keep talking about new projects, even if the project that you've been relying on has won lots of awards. The only way that your other new projects are going to win awards is if you promote them and other people promote them. And in order for them to do that, they have to know about them. So oftentimes the pushback is like, but this one's been published, a bunch of times and won all the great. None of these ever will be if you don't start letting them have a little moment in the spotlight.
And kind of to the same point is that when the firm is more than just the projects too. And so part of that spotlight needs to necessarily fall onto the people inside the firm, the kinds of decisions, the methodology for how decisions get made. Communicating all of that on social is also key to breaking up the project logjam, as it were, and making it so that you have more to say than just check out the projects.
Yeah, because you are being considered and being hired for how you think, how you envision things, how you work with other people, what you're like to work with. And none of that comes through with just, here's a picture of our project, we did a project. And when you do post project photos, talk about what's going on in that photo.
Give it some context.
Yeah, help somebody understand why is this an achievement? Why does this matter? What's going on behind the scenes?
Why should I care?
Yeah, exactly. Or thank the people that were involved in making that project happen, you know?
That is a really key component to the equation, especially on social, is to give back to other people, to bring them into the fold, to say thank you, to, create those opportunities to show that you are part of a larger team, both inside your firm and outside your firm.
Exactly.
And that, again, another great way to break up the, monotony of project fatigue.
It will also help with younger designers if they have been led to believe that no matter what they do, it's never going to be as important to the firm as this project that was done 25 years ago. That will eventually show in the work, and they'll leave because there's no room for them. There's no room for their ideas.
It's all in the past.
Yeah. So helping them maybe select, what are some different things that we want to feature? How can we mix this up a little bit? Maybe we change up the featured image on our homepage, every so often. Maybe we change up the images on our social. Maybe we will look at new ways of talking about projects. Maybe it's not, I know this is going to sound like complete and total heresy, but maybe the picture of the project is a picture of the team in front of the project, or the head architect in front of the project with the owner. Like, there are lots of different ways that you can showcase the work that is not always a professionally shot, devoid of human photograph.
Glamour shot.
Yeah, and there's a place for those.
Yeah,
for sure.
But if that's it, then you end up, because it's so common, you end up feeling like so many other places. It doesn't matter that your work looks different. It doesn't matter that you completed building X or building Y, because it all kind of runs together.
And this is where the fatigue comes in. We're not talking about your fatigue. We're talking about the fatigue of everybody who receives your communications. They are fatigued. They are fatigued by seeing the same thing over and over and over again. The same note that they see being struck by everybody in that field. They're exhausted by it, and they've lost the ability and the will to differentiate. So you have to help them.
And one good thing would be is to try a test on Instagram is a great platform to test this out on. But if you have an account where you don't have a ton of people that you're following, unfollow it except for the architecture firms that you follow, and wait a few days to see how true this is and the way that communications frequently happen, because it is a very common practice.
Yes. And again, there is reason to do that, but it's more work than just saying, okay, here's our project, put out all the photos of it.
Yeah.
Really, you have to invest the work in thinking about how do we best connect with people. In our last episode, we talked about going into a coffee shop. Well, you wouldn't go into a coffee shop and start handing out postcards with a picture of your latest project on it, and just saying, here's a project I did. Is that what you're doing online?
That is exactly right. It also brought to mind the person that brings back all their vacation photos and shows you 105 vacation photos. It's a similar problem. You're like, you see 3, you're kind of like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. No more.
Well, what you want to see is the photo where they're like, oh, here's where this hilarious thing happened. Or here's where we got to see this thing that nobody else ever gets to see, or here's like 2 photos, some combination of things. Doesn't mean you can't show everything. It just means you have to be more considerate in how you're presenting them and how you're helping people connect with them.
By putting other people's feelings about what they're consuming from a social media content ahead of your own, you may actually get a better outcome on that front.
Exactly.
You will get it.
Yeah.
Big takeaways.
Big takeaways. Really think about how what you're putting out is received by the people that you're setting it to. Are you only ever talking about one aspect of your firm, which is professional photos of completed work? Are you using those platforms to showcase other ways that you think, and that could include video? And are you relying too much on maybe 1 or 2 or 3 projects? when you have a really varied portfolio with lots of quality work that also deserves some limelight.
My takeaway would be look at your profile. Look at the images that you've posted in the last year. Does it meet any of the criteria that Patience just talked about? Or scroll through LinkedIn and your posts that you've done as a company. That will also paint a very similar picture. So
yeah, it'll become apparent pretty quickly.
Yes.
And if you get stuck for content, just think, what would you find interesting? What would you want to hear? Maybe not from another architecture firm, because there's, you might view them as a competitor, but think about, what would you want to know from a company in another industry?
Yep.
What would you find interesting? Well, we find you very interesting. We hope you have found this episode very interesting. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.